as someone who's aspiring to get on a WNBA roster and got rejected a couple of weeks ago, how do you feel about that?
Oh, Bogues. Fucking below the belt hit. Jesus. I know you're a big time fucking coach now, Bogues, but you know.
Welcome to Bogues on the week of the podcast, talking all things basketball, NBL Finals, riding full swing NBA stuff. Kind of the cold month before the playoffs start. It's always interesting to see what happens there, and get to be joined by Pro and his whiteboard of notes. How are you going, Pro?
Well, Coach Bogues, I'm doing great, by the way, and I just want you to know it's gonna be my pleasure to watch NBL games now, watching your smiley mug on the bench, being the happy-go-lucky guy that you are, and it's gonna be awesome to see that, man. Congratulations, welcome to the fraternity. I don't really consider myself much of a coach, but I do want to welcome you. That snuck in the middle of the night last week. You have the typhoon that went on. All of a sudden, you have a typhoon that went on. And then the next day, we didn't do the show. And then like the next day, you get named assistant coach for the Sydney Kings. So I don't know. That's a little shadiness going on last week. I'm just to be honest with you, brother. So can you please break that one down of how that stuff came about? Because, that to me puzzled me way more than the JFK assassination. I really want to know.
The cyclone brought it on, you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I orchestrated the cyclone, so the podcast was off that week, so I could announce this. Is that your theory?
I mean, it was something out of the Wizard of fucking Oz. Like, we've been doing this pod for 5 years. You've never had any weather in fucking Australia. All of a sudden, you get swept up to see the land of Oz, and I'm just, for some reason, I mean, you got more O's in your bank account than a fucking box of Cheerios, yet you can't have a backup studio ready to go. Nothing. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you're fucking named assistant coach. I mean, I want to know what happened, the favors that you had to do, and the payback that you have to have. I mean, do you have some billionaire that you have to put their grandson on the team? You have pictures on somebody. I want to know, like that's
it's the NBL,
a
Pro.
couple of questions that went through my head.
There's no words financially that start with a B in the NBL. It's not the NBA first and foremost. But no,
Good point.
We had 2 openings on the staff, and it kind of came together pretty quickly. Once it was noted that 2 people were leaving, there was a call and said, what's your interest? There were people between you and I there, and the listeners. I had some offers to be a head coach over the last 12 to 18 months. I declined. I declined pretty quickly. I didn't get down the path on those at all, and I didn't think I was ready. So this path for me is I like it much better. I want to come in bare bones at the bottom and kind of learn that way, bro. I don't want to jump into that seat and then wing it and then have to learn on the fly. I think that's, you're setting yourself up for failure somewhat, and just want to do it the right way.
Nothing worse than an ex-player jumping into a head coaching role that's not ready for it. Clyde Drexler, and I love Clyde Drexler. I think he's one of the best 2 guards of all time. They give him the University of Houston job, and I don't think he coached at all. Like, after he retired, that's it. They said he missed like 43 practices. 43 practices.
In a season.
And it's bad enough when like you're an assistant coach, it's an ex-player, and it's a way over your head, and you got to learn the ropes. I mean, look, anybody that takes a first-year job, it's going to be over your head for a little bit until you get the day-to-day. And like as an assistant coach, you're in control of like 2 or 3 things, whatever, development or like offense, defense, scouts, whatever it is. But imagine being a head coach with 700 things going across your, drawing up timeouts. You got to manage your staff, players, all of that
practice
stuff. Plus,
plans
overseas,
these days, you got all the high performance stuff. You got strength and conditioning. You got rest. And college on top of that. You got to make sure that you're going to class. I agree. Like, I think the point being, I didn't have to jump into an assistant role. I had opportunities to not do that, and some would say you know, my resume says I could just jump into it, but I know that I'm not ready, and I know that I need to kind of, you know, I want to learn. I want to, and look, Brian Gorgian, you know, he's been in the game for 40, 50 years, right? Like he's coached in China, he's coached the national team, he's been in really good seasons, really shitty seasons. I want to see how he kind of manages the day-to-day. How does he do things culturally? How does he do things after a bad loss, a good loss, you know, and just take notes of what I like and what I don't and what I'll one day use. You know, people ask, are you going to be a head coach one day? Like, no shit. I think for most assistants, the goal is to one day be a head coach. So I will one day be a head coach. It's a matter of, not a matter of if, matter of when. But right now, you know, the next couple of seasons, I definitely want to really kind of knuckle down and get back involved in the game. I missed it. You know, I retired in 2020. I didn't want to jump into a coaching role as soon as I retired as well. I think that's flirt with danger. I saw an ex-teammate of mine did that, Kevin Lish with the Sydney Kings. I spoke with him about it and he jumped straight into it and he thought, he told me I should have taken a break for a year or two and just refreshed. So all those things were in mind. I think, you know, kids are growing up. I want them to be around the game more. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, there's pro over here, and Trent and I just discussed it offline. There's people firing up about conflict of interest because I'm in the ownership group of the Sydney Kings, and I'm going to be an assistant coach. And I scratch my head as to where the conflict is. I'm still trying to figure out. So now that I'm assistant, I want the Kings to do poorly, or now that I'm assistant, I want them to. I just don't understand where the conflict is. The only person I think that has a worry if there was a conflict of interest would be the head coach, right? If I'm in the ownership group and I'm an assistant, but we're going to put some things in place with the Sydney Kings and the ownership group of certain things I don't touch anymore and I don't get involved with, obviously, because it's crossing a line. But it's been quite funny hearing people in the NBL, commentators, actually talking about conflict of interest, Trent. That's the most interesting thing because you have a league owner that owns equity in teams. They've never brought that up on broadcast, which has been quite interesting. So now all of a sudden conflict of interest is an important matter. So I found that one very interesting, Trent.
I think it's because of the air quotes, you being a controversial figure. I think anytime anyone can mention your name, Bogues, and get some more clicks on what they're doing, they're going to do it. So it's all just air. It's all just...
It's interesting.
Yeah.
You're not exactly a guy who locks himself in a fucking dungeon, Bogues. It ain't like you don't say shit.
Hey, I put my balls on the line in numerous different facets.
The biggest problem that I'm seeing right now is our biggest fan, my guy, Eric Langan. He's out of Orlando, Florida now. God bless him. He's hoarding, because he's afraid that we're going off the air right away. So he's hoarding old episodes like he was hoarding fucking Clorox, wet wipes, and fucking toilet paper back in the pandemic because he's trying to watch all our old episodes before we go off. So, you know, my guy is the best. He loves it, gets him through his week. We'll listen to our shenanigans. So, you know, I guess we gotta hold on as long as we can, I guess.
Yeah, we'll finish off the season post NBA. Everything will stay up. Like, we're not going to just go and bomb the pod. We'll leave it up, you know, potentially and see. People can go back and listen to our beautiful voices. But let's get into it. Yeah, the coaching stuff. Excited. Can't wait. Fantastic.
Bogues, before we go through this, can I give you one thing that I haven't even told you about yet? AI is getting out of control in the NBA right now. Okay.
Allen Iverson's back.
It's like, no, the other AI, the Terminator AI. Yeah. It's like 3 a.m. My wife nudges me. All right.
Wait, this is a G-rated podcast.
No, no, trust me. That nudge hasn't happened in a while. She says, "Hey, Jock's coming to Dallas, huh?" And you know, she couldn't sleep, so she's on her phone. And I'm like, "What? Jock's coming to Dallas." So I said, "Give me the phone." So this is a post on like a Facebook account, Dallas Mavericks fans or something.
Yeah.
NBA news. The Houston Rockets franchise center, Jock Landale, has formally confirmed his departure from Houston Rockets as he officially joins the Dallas Mavericks to help salvage this season after he mutually terminated his contract with the Rockets 13 hours ago due to misunderstanding about a contract extension. As per ESPN, after the star center in the Dallas Mavericks reached a $59.9 million 4-year max contract agreement as Jason Kidd formally confirmed Jock Landale arrival from Houston Rockets 15 minutes ago. Bogues.
Wait, that was
We gotta
AI or
crack
your
down
wife
on AI.
reading like NBL Central?
Bogues, it's right here. You
we can't
can't
see
really it's like a Facebook account that she was just scrolling. Obviously they listen to every word you say. So like you like we mentioned Jock a lot. We mentioned
Mavericks,
because I went to see him last week to work him out, and like we'll just talk about him, and then the Mavericks, So there it is. I'm like 59 million over 4, brother. That's great, but I figured that it was AI because you don't have $15 million to spend, but that was fantastic. I just had to share that.
Would have been good if it was true, but it's good. It's good to see getting fooled by internet pages. It runs in the family, bro. It's not just you.
No doubt about it. It's hereditary, brother. It's hereditary.
All right, let's get into the NBA
let's
stuff.
get on with the Yes, sir.
Team of the week. Who you got?
The Washington Wizards, Bogues.
No way.
Bogues, they won. First of all,
They won.
I know you've been. I know you're an assistant coach now, but you gotta put your media hat on. They won 2 in a row. All right,
6 and 4 in their last 10. Woo!
Bogues, 2 in a row. But hold on, let me just get the.
They beat Denver, didn't they? They've actually beaten Denver the last couple of seasons. Actually, Denver struggled. That's their bogey team for some reason.
Yeah, so they beat them. Who else they beat? They just beat someone else too. They beat at Detroit, at Denver. They win at Denver on a buzzer beater, I think by Poole, and they win at Detroit after losing by 20 the night before, the 2 nights before, the game before, same thing at Detroit, and they win by 4. Dude, 2-game win streak for those guys. I mean, come on. Fuck, 86 Celtics, here we come.
Fair enough. Hurting their stock. They're still tight. They're 1 game ahead of the Utah Jazz for that number 1 pick favorite odds.
Yeah, they all the power to you, brother. I'll give it to them all night long.
Yeah, and great for Sarr, great for his development. I mean, you never want to see teams tank or be bad, but the silver lining is that your young guys really get an opportunity, and they're gonna throw guys out there that haven't played a lot of minutes, and you can really see what you got at the end of that roster, right? Like you said, some of those veteran guys, I'll probably try to move off Poole, the Middleton thing, Marcus Smart. It's like you don't see them as long-term pieces there, really. They're just filling spots as salary spots and whatnot. But I think for the younger guys, it's going to be really interesting. So that definitely threw me a little bit because we don't usually give Washington much love, and we rule them out of weak teams because they're so bad. But I'm going to go with the Golden State Warriors. They're balling. They're balling right now. They're playing really good basketball. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 7 straight, and they've most importantly got out of that play-in area. They're currently 6th, half a game above Minnesota, who are also balling. They get a shout out too. They've won 7 straight, and the Houston Rockets have won 6 straight. So they were my 3 that I was tossing up. But just to see where Golden State came from, they were 10-11 a month ago. They were falling out of even the play-in. And now they're just playing good basketball, and they're not. It's not just a cupcake. They're beating some good teams. They beat Detroit. They've beaten New York. They beat New York yesterday in a grind out. Beaten Sacramento, Portland, New York again a couple of weeks ago. So they've kind of demolished the Eastern Conference for the most part over the last month. And you can't lie. The Jimmy Butler thing has worked. So genius move by them. They're playing some good basketball, and like we said, if you're a 2, 3, 4, you kind of worry about them at a 5 and 6. They can do some damage, and Steph Curry's an ultimate playoff performer. So is Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green. Playing really well this season and well balanced. I don't want to face him in the playoffs. If I'm one of those guys, I'd much rather face a Minnesota or a Clippers or a Lakers, in my opinion. But good to see them back in the 6.
Yeah, Bogues. The one thing that the upgrade on Butler from Wiggins is the big thing for that, in my opinion, is just the consistency of toughness day in and day out. Wiggins is such a talent, but sometimes it's just up and down as far as his impact on the game. And I think Butler, look, you could say whatever you want, and I think a lot's to be said with how he handled the Miami thing, getting out, but that's just human nature, especially when things are going bad and not your way, and you want out of a situation. That's what's probably going to be your how to get out of that situation is go nuts and start ruffling feathers. But he adds a toughness, he adds a defensive mentality, a defensive mindset, and then the guy can score. He's another guy that you could just give the ball to. He could put his head down and go. I think getting rid of Schroeder was great because, I think, there's no, look, I'm not a huge Schroeder guy, but, a lot of things started going south when he got there, even though he wasn't there all that long this year. And then Buddy Hield has been in a funk, but to have another guy you can go to that could sort of, deliver the mail for you on a regular basis. And Draymond's that tough guy. Butler's that tough guy. He protects Curry. They could, they're going to do the dirty stuff that's going to help you get over the finish line. I think it's a good deal. They get Kuminga back. He's been out for a while with that sprain. I think that's sprained ankle, I believe. I'm not sure if the injury. I'm almost positive it's sprained ankle.
Yep.
So they get him back in the stretch run for the playoffs. They've got experience. They've got toughness. They've got, I guess they got the winningest coach in Golden State history, by the way. But I think he got that last night.
Just past Alvin Adams, right?
Yep. Yeah, Steve Kerr. So good for him, man. So yeah, they're rolling, they're balling. Good for them, and going forward, it's going to be a fun playoff, Bogues. It's going to be, who's going to play who's going to play OKC in that first round. That's going to be a big one, and then Golden State. I mean, I wouldn't want to play them in the first round, to be honest with you. If I'm a high-seeded team, I do not want to see them.
Yeah, and to our point, Jimmy Butler averaging 7.1 free throw attempts a game. Now, remember, Golden State were one of the bottom-tier free throw attempt teams. That's just the way they play.
Yeah, you did mention that.
The threes and whatnot, so that trade has really got them someone that if their offense is sputtering at times, they can throw it down on the block. It's going to be interesting to see when Kuminga comes in the lineup. They can go to some pretty wild lineups, like a Kuminga, Butler, Hield, Steph, Draymond at the 5, like pretty good lineup. Like you got great defenders, length, size. You don't have a whole lot of like strength, big man size, but Draymond can play stretches at the 5. That's a pretty nasty, interesting lineup that they can try to play off. So I'm looking forward to see what Steve does once they're all healthy. Right now, it's all just kind of flowing nicely, but Kuminga is the one piece that's missing. My weak team, I'll go first on this one. I've got the Miami Heat. I just didn't think they'd be this bad after the trade. Like, you have to remember, even with Jimmy out, they were somewhat competitive and they were playing decent basketball. But it's just kind of, it's all just gone, kind of poorly for them. And yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what's going on down there in Miami. Lost 7 straight, 2-8 in their last 10, and you'd think with Wiggins and a few of the other pieces that they got that they'd be at least a little bit better. But they were better when Jimmy was there not playing than before this trade, bro, which is interesting.
Bogues, it's a weird deal after trades and things about how things settle in. And look, they've been towing the line of being not a great team all year. They've been inconsistent. Now you throw in Andrew Wiggins trying to find his footing. The Rozier thing really hasn't worked since he got there from Charlotte last year. And then you get the gambling thing and all that. Yeah, I mean, the only guy that's really bringing it every night for them is probably Bam Adebayo, right? I mean, averaging about 17 and 10. Not a lot of consistency there. Like, Hero's been okay. Like, I got him on my fantasy team, so I pay attention to him more than most. But like, he'll have 40 one night, and then he'll have like 6 on like 2 of 3,000 shooting on one night. So they can't find consistency with anything. And plus, look, their guys are getting a little older. Look, Adebayo is a big timer. Still Hero, could really score, but he's got to show more consistency. They got some guys that scrap off the bench. Duncan Robinson makes shots, and they're trying to develop Jovic, but it's just I don't know. They're trying. They're just trying to compete. It's just I just don't think they have the horses, to really beat teams. But you would expect a little bit more. The Wiggins thing.
Well, defensively, the point I'm looking at, pro. Sorry to cut you off, but you look at them.
Not bad.
So Mitchell at the point is known as a great defender, on-ball defender, picks up full court. You got Wiggins at a 2-3, and you got Adebayo. They're both elite defenders, right? How the hell are you? So their last 7 that they've lost straight, they've given up over 100 in every one of those games. 112, 106, 114, 105, 119, 103, and 125. It's like you would think their defense would have at least improved post this trade because you brought in a couple of guys that are great defenders, but their defense got worse and their offense is sputtering as well because of it. It's just like I don't know. This looks like they've checked out and they're happy with just let's just tick the box for this season and move on, which is not what we attribute to Miami Heat.
No, I think offense too. They're struggling. I mean, I think they're 25th in scoring, rim protections, which you would have think because Bam's there. They're 30th in blocks. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not really huge on just throwing stats out there, but their offense for sure. I thought that they struggled with a little bit. Just sort of outscoring teams and things. Defensively, you're right. You expect that grinded out mentality, especially with those guys. You add Wiggins to the mix. They are struggling. They're struggling, and there's no real end in sight. I mean, look, you got Bam, you got Hero. You could rearrange your roster a little bit and do some things, but I don't think they have a ton of cap room, to really do much with. I'll be interested to see what they do going forward. Do you trade Hero? Is it status quo? You can't be status quo with the guys they got. It'll be interesting how they sort of handle all this.
Yeah, it will be, but they're in the doldrums, so I'm not anticipating much of a change there. Not right now. Off season maybe, but we'll see. Who you got?
Get the Sacramento Kings, Bogues. Now look, obviously they lost De'Aaron Fox recently. They lost a few in a row. I think they've lost 4 in a row. They lost Sabonis with a hamstring injury, so he's been out. I really struggle with having teams like this unless there's like a blatant team that they're a good team that's really losing. They just been struggling a little bit. A team that really started doing well. I think a lot of attributed to Sabonis being out the last few games, but 5-5 of the last 10, lost 4 straight. I'm sure they'll pick it up, but they're still trying to find their identity and things like that. They played really well after the Mike Brown firing, and then they were hot. They were hot for a while. It cooled off, but again, I think when Sabonis comes back, it's interesting. Sabonis hurts his hamstring. Plumlee got ejected. You see this? Plumlee gets ejected 2 straight games. One for wrestling Steven Adams. Again, when they played Houston, and then he sort of does a cheap shot to Sabonis, like elbows him to the face, and then I believe he got ejected for 2 in a row. But yeah, Sabonis has been hurting. I think he retweaked that hamstring. Not a great time to do that after missing a couple, I think like 10 days or so with it. So it'll be interesting to see going forward in this playoff push what happens at SAC.
Yeah, and the honeymoon period's over. Like we often see that when you replace the coach like they did, they had that little high. They were playing really good basketball under Christie, and now it's kind of everything kind of settles and you struggle a little bit more, right? Like they at the end of the day, they still are that team. They got a little bit of a boost from the change, and then obviously made the trades and whatnot.
Bogues, have you heard? Not that I care about this stuff, but have you heard? So Vivek, their owner's daughter, is dating Jeremy Lamb, the ex-NBA player that played at a bunch of teams, and I guess the word on the street is that he is influencing some of their moves that they make into making with personnel. I guess there was there's a Sacramento staffer that I guess he's been courtside seats with his girlfriend and Vivek's daughter and him, but I guess there was an employee that spoke off the record that said that we're all going to be working for Lamb someday. So that's an interesting one.
Well, he was a minority owner when I got to the Warriors. His daughter hated
Jeremy
me.
Lamb?
No, Vivek.
Oh, Vivek. Yep.
Vivek. Yeah.
Jesus, I was gonna say you made some money, huh?
His daughter hated me the moment I got there because she was Monte Ellis was her favorite player. So I got done in that deal. So I rocked up and she could not stand me, which I didn't know. I was meeting different people. But let's just say her rendezvous with NBA players didn't start with Jeremy Lamb. Some interesting conversations in our locker room about her, which was wild. Like I came from Milwaukee where we had Senator Cole as the owner, kind of older dude, wasn't around much, like show up once in a while, to this where like a owner's daughter is, you know, how do you put it eloquently, pro? But you know where I'm going, and you're like, and it's spoken
I think you
about.
put it, yeah.
It's spoken about in the locker room. And you're like, holy shit, this is wild. So not surprised whatsoever as far as that goes, and it's always look. Whenever you're an owner and you have family involved to an extent, it's one thing, but when it's under these circumstances, that's a whole different story. So yeah, I'm not too surprised. But as I said, the honeymoon's over for the Kings. They're in an interesting position. They'll still scrap into a play-in, but yeah, for the most part, they're in a bit of a struggle at the moment. All right, let's get into some news. So LeBron versus Stephen A. I missed putting this one on the run sheet. I saw it, but I just kind of bombed. So Pro reminded me because he really wants to discuss this. But it was interesting. It was very interesting to see. For those not familiar, I don't know if I didn't follow what Stephen A. said about his son. I think he was just kind of like, he's not ready. He's doing him a disservice. Was that the comments from a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah. Like so on he's got his own podcast, and then he's on a couple of shows on ESPN. I think maybe one of the pre-games too, he's saying it with Perk. But like, yeah, he got animated about, one thing about Stephen A, he goes on some tangents, but he sort of keeps it professional as far as like not throwing cheap shots that much. And he didn't throw cheap shots at Bronny. It was more like, he's doing him a disservice by sort of opening up these doors, and he's not ready for it. And, it was interesting. He sort of like jogged over. You got Larry David like right there, and it just heated conversation during either pregame or a timeout. I guess they were doing like one of those contests.
It was during the game, right?
Timeout.
Third quarter, middle of the timeout, LeBron walks out of the timeout and approaches Stephen A. And then apparently the quote was because Stephen A was pleading with LeBron as a father. Like to your point, Pro, like about opening the doors. But like to quote, LeBron was really pissed about him like pleading to LeBron as a father and speaking to him as a father and not like a
saying you're doing a disservice to your son by doing this to him. Let him play in the G League, which I think most people agree with, right? Like Stephen A is the bearer of bad news, but to do it during a game, like it's just wild. I just don't get it, and it was that would have been strategic, like because it's now massive news. We've been in this business, Pro. You can do that shit behind the scenes in the back of the arena of a loading dock if you really wanted to, right? And have the same conversation. This was strategically done to create the waves that it's created, have idiots like us discussing it. But it, is it fair? Is it not? I get it. Look, I've got kids, and my whole thing is with criticism, even if it's about your kids or whatever, my first point of reference is the criticism, does it have some truth or is it valid? That's my first point. Take the emotion out of things. Is what was said valid? Well, as a father, even if it's about your kid, as much as it sucks, there's some truth to that. So then you got to reassess from there. If it's something blatantly disrespectful and I don't think Stephen A did that from the stuff that I've heard, but this whole questioning me as a father, I don't think it was that. I think he's said what we've said, like let Bronny have his own journey, and he has to have his own ups and downs. He can't continuously be in that shadow. That is doing a disservice for his son. I think it is. And I'm with my own kids, Pro, like I had a conversation with my kid's coach, and I said, don't put him in the one team or the A team if he's not deserving of it. Don't do it because of me. I'm not going to get mad at you, or I'm not going to like come and abuse you. If you don't think he's ready for that team, put him in a different team. Does not bother me whatsoever. Like, I think it's good either way. There's pros and cons to both, right? And I think they're the conversations that you need to have sometimes. But I just think doing it during the middle of a game, really head scratching stuff.
Yeah, I think it was completely calculated for sure. I think that there are so many people who love LeBron, and him doing that during a game. It's all news, right? It's every news, newswire picks it up, and I think it sort of summons these people who follow him. Anything he does, they're gonna go with him. And I think that having this tidal wave of defense with Bronny being, drafted 55, he's worth it. No one's really ready the first year, and now that, whatever. Like, I guess that it is what it is, right? But he's calculated with it, so he knew that people were gonna do that if he did this spectacle during a game, and that's what it sort of caused. It caused people to talk about it. B, like, other people, like, in social media to start doing these. Like, I see these Bronny James breakdowns all the time now. A lot of them are like joking when he makes shots and stuff. It's sort of like Angel Reese. But a lot of it's like, oh, he's averaging 25 in the G League or whatever, in the last 10. You got Gilbert Arenas, who's gonna, now who, like, overwhelming support for him. You've got other people like ex-teammates that are in the media that defend him. And I think you should defend anything that's hits below the belt on, if you're going to make fun of the kid. And I don't think anyone's really making fun of him. The problem is, like, look, if he's not a player and they go after his kids or they go after him as a father, then yeah, like, I guess you could do it to a certain degree, not to the degree that he did it. But if he's in the limelight and this kid is playing, I think in the media, you have all the right in the world to, quote unquote, attack what they don't do well, especially if it's way over their head. And look, at this point, it is way over his head. Look, there's been worse picks picked at 55. The problem is, it's blatantly obvious they drafted him because of LeBron. And look, LeBron had, he had all the plus side on this. Like, he had all the power of the organization, before they got Luka, of course, to do things like this. But people are gonna probably go out at you even harder for it, for obvious reasons. So, yeah, Stephen A. didn't do anything out of sorts. Yeah, if he says things that sort of trigger you, like, oh, I plead with you as a father, blah, 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 you can get a little upset. But look, Rich Paul could have easily set that up and said, hey, Stephen A. could have been like, hey, give him my number, let's talk about it. Or, like you said, let's talk about it in the back. It's
especially ESPN. Like, ESPN's generally so pro LeBron. Everything's got a LeBron Lakers slant. Like, it's like, that's the one network that absolutely loves LeBron and having his name on, they'll bring his name up on random things that have nothing to do with LeBron or the Lakers. Like, they actually, did you see the ESPN post with Steph Curry?
No.
So they did the Steph Curry 4,000 made threes thing, right? And in that post, it said it had LeBron in it as well to mention the 40,000 points. This is from the ESPN account.
Did you see?
People were like, you can't mention Steph without mentioning that's my point. So they love LeBron. So the fact that he's mad at someone with ESPN is quite hilarious.
Did you see Barkley, though? Barkley went at, when he was going at Perkins, was going at ESPN for, like, anything that could happen. A volcano erupts in Hawaii. They'll talk about not that, or they'll try to swing in the Warriors and the Lakers and LeBron and anything that they say, basically. And it is true. Like, anytime they just try to talk about those guys to death. And, I'm actually glad when anyone tries to, like, talk about small market teams or teams that you don't talk about that are on the up and up. And, that's what's so wild about Cleveland and Oklahoma City being so great this year, man. It's great to see. It's not just the regular, it's not just the regular suspects on it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's always been an issue, and it's, they know where their biggest markets are, and that's the unfortunate reality. And that's why the revenue sharing model is the smaller markets get a bit more help because they just don't get as much airtime. All right, did you see Dagenhalt's little strategy against Denver?
I did.
I love this kind of shit. Like, I love it. I love coaches that find little tweaks in the rules. So for those not familiar, Jokic is a master at taking the ball inbounds quickly. So by what I mean by that is coming out of a timeout, he'll go and stand next to the ref and be like, come on, give me the ball. And then he'll just launch a full court pass because the defense isn't paying attention yet. He'll do it in transition after a foul call. He just wants to get the ball in quickly to run and really throw those long-ass passes and hit an Aaron Gordon, sealing his guy or whatever. So Dagenhalt, what he did was he kept a permanent sub at the table, waiting to check into the game. Per NBA rules, you can put a sub at the table, then bring them back, right, pro? Per the rules, you're allowed to do that. You don't have to. I think in FIBA, you have to sub them in. I think in the NBA, you can have them wait there. Ref goes, sub, come in. Actually, no, I don't want to do that sub anymore, and you bring them back. What that does is it delays Jokic being able to just play really quickly off the inbounds. So I think the refs gave him a delay of game, I think, but I don't think that's within the rules neither. I think Dagenhart found a loophole now. The NBA is going to have to address it. They haven't come out yet because technically it's within the rules, but I just love shit like this. I love people that try to. Is it manipulating the rules? Yes, but it's within the laws of the game, and they find a way to find an edge. And that, you know what I liked about it too, Jokic was asked about it, and he was like, "It's great, it's genius, it's a great move." Like, yeah, I'm trying to get the ball in quick. We get 5 to 10 points a game from defense not being ready by me just throwing long passes when I inbound the ball. So I think it was a genius move by him. Good on him. But yeah, just thought I'd note it because I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was a smart move, man. That whole organization, like Oklahoma City, probably has about 800 staff members that support basketball on the front office and coaching side, and they've got people who are like analytics people, video coaches, video strategic people. I mean, they've got more people than fucking NASA working for those guys, you know, trying to get every little loophole. I mean, think about it. Presti was probably the guy who invented pick swaps. I never heard of a pick swap in my life before Presti would do it with guys, and I'm sure it's happened before him. But like they challenge it. They push the envelope on everything to give him any type of an advantage. Actually, I'm sorry. Danny Ainge was the first guy to do a pick swap when he did the KG Pierce trade to Brooklyn that got him Jaylen Brown, but in Tatum. But with like that Oklahoma City deal, like, yeah, it was a great. I read about it. I saw it on social media, and you know, that's way above my head. That's like 18 steps ahead. I wouldn't even think of that.
I love it.
To be honest with you,
I love it. Now the best part of all this is if they do it again, which is only really against Denver, they're trying to do it to. The league's going to then like put out a separate statement and rule about tweaking that. They'll probably tweak that in the offseason. So it's going to cause a domino effect. But it's good. It's good. It's interesting.
But 20 games, you get about 20 games and playoffs to do it before they make the change. So, you know, but you know what they'll do, Bogues? Just like anything else, they'll try to find a loophole with something else. It's unbelievable.
And they might face each other in the playoffs. That's
guys.
Why it's interesting too, because they could likely match up. If they do, it'd be hilarious if he just literally has his 13th man just standing at the scorer's table for the whole game. I mean,
why not?
What I think is going to happen is I think the refs are just going to start ignoring it. You know, they're just going to start ignoring the sub standing there. But that's technically breaking the rules as a referee. So it's a bit of a shit fight, push and pull, and we'll see how that goes. The Mavs, they're close to a forfeit pro. They've got 8 healthy players today. The NBA requires 8 players to be active for every game. If a team can't suit up 8 players, they have to forfeit the game. Teams have gotten around it in the past, here we go, pro, by suiting up minimum players, including an injured player or 2, a player checking in and getting re-injured, and playing with 6 players a team would have played with anyway. But the NBA, per their new rules, could punish the Mavericks for lying on an injury report if it came down to it. So what they're saying is back in the day, you'd have, if I was really badly hurt, but we're at 7, I would suit up and not play, or I would start the game for a second and then limp off and get re-injured just so we don't forfeit the game. That's now against the NBA rules. So they're an interesting spot. They got a lot of injuries. You feel horrible for them because they're being completely depleted. But this is a case of a new rule which could actually, I doubt would see an NBA forfeit. I think they'd call them. The Mavs would call and say, "Listen, like you gotta waive that rule for us. We're gonna put guys on the roster that are hurt, that clearly can't play, but it's gonna give us 8. Otherwise, we're forfeiting." And you and I both know, pro, how much the NBA loves forfeiting games. We had a cyclone come through Memphis. Played the game still that night while the cyclone was going on. Now, in fairness, the arena is one of the safest places during a cyclone because all concrete. Still flew out that night, pro, because like, the cyclone's passed, we're good. Like it was because the NBA does not want to cancel games. But interesting one for the Mavs.
You mean a tornado, Bogues?
Sorry, tornado. My bad. Yes, I get confused.
Fucking cyclone. Cyclone?
Memphis is landlocked. You're correct. Oh no, they got a bit of water down south. Tennessee. They got any water down that way? I'm bad with
river, Mississippi.
They're not near the Gulf there, are they? No, they're 1 or 2 up, aren't they?
I don't know, but the
Well,
way
you
the
should
murder
know.
rates up there, you think they're in the way the murder rates up there, you think they're in the fucking Persian Gulf. But yeah, I have no fucking idea.
But yes, so the Mavs, we'll see how that goes. And then finally, WNBA lockout is looming. As someone who's aspiring to get on a WNBA roster, and got rejected a couple of weeks ago, how do you feel about that?
Oh, Bogues. Fucking below the belt hit. Jesus. I know you're a big time fucking coach now, Bogues, but you know, you don't have to fucking throw shots at me with this stuff. But Bogues, I mean, look, there's no secret that financially they're a joke, as far as making money, losing money, right? The one thing that I will give the women on this, or the WNBA players on this, is, and I'm not giving it to them, but like the point, first of all, they got to make money first, and they're not making money. And my big thing is you're losing money, yet you want to fly private for $20 million a year, when I think you lost like 10 to 15 last year. Never made money. NBA's got to okay it. Now, their BRI structure is NBA's 50-50 team player, right? 50% gets back to the players. And the WNBA, 20% go to the players, and not 50. Now, they got to be smart enough to understand that they lost money every fucking year. So there's no argument there. You can't just keep on losing money every year. If those women ran side businesses and they were losing their ass with money, right? And their employees came up to them and said, "Well, we want more." Like, wait a minute, I'm shelling the money out, and you're losing it, and you want more. They got to understand they're not making fucking money. And, Caitlin Clark is one of the only ways they're going to make money, and they're getting to that point. Now with the NBA rights deal, they'll probably get into the black. They'll get into the black for sure for that. And then once they're in the black, then you could renegotiate the deal. But it's just our society today of victim mentality of like, oh, yeah, but they get 50%. You're not making money. Nobody comes to see you except if it's Caitlin fucking Clark. That's just it. You guys are getting up to that point where you're going to start making money. And then when you start making money for a few years in a row, then say, look, let's go to 35% or 40% of the money. I think the league brought in revenue last year before expenses was like $200 million. And I think like $40 million goes to player salaries. So, when that number, because of the rights deal and things like that, go up to 550, 600 million, now you're getting into the black 100 million. Then like say, okay, let's go to 35% of the players. Let's throw more money. And I think you're going to see $1 million max contract at some point in the next 10 years in the WNBA. That's in the right direction. Right now it's at like 248 is their max deal. So, but like to complain about revenue and not know what the fuck you're talking about. Well, yeah, you're right. You're at 20% and the men get 50, but the men make money and you don't.
Exactly right. And
that was crazy.
That's a huge issue. Like, it's like people have said that, and this might be harsh, that if the WNBA had a lockout this next year, their losses would be significantly less than their last 10-year annual losses, because there's nothing going on. They just, so that's where it's tough. Like your revenue share is irrelevant until you make money. Even if it's 5%, bad luck. Like you need to make money. If it goes to 50%, then you're in the black for another 2 decades, right? Like you said, you're getting ahead of yourself with flying private and doing all these things, and we want the hotels like the men. I get it to an extent, but it's not like for like. It's just not until you bring in more bums on seats, sell more jerseys, have a better TV deal, have a better media rights deal. It's just head scratching when you present this to non-basketball people and you just present it from a profit loss point of view. They just look at it and laugh. Like, what are we discussing here? Like, we can't pay you more. Like, we shouldn't even be paying you 20%. We should be paying you. You should be paying us to play. It should be minus 20% because our losses are so high, right? So I just you hate to see the WNBA and some of the basketballers, female basketballers, shoot themselves in the foot, especially with the Caitlin Clark stuff. You've got we've beat this horse to death, but you've got a literal bum on seat figure in your league, and you're shitting on her constantly, and it's never enough, and this and that, and she's not the only reason. People don't want to hear that. They're like, no, I'm going to see Caitlin Clark. Unfortunately, sorry, do I have to feel guilty about that? And you've got a revenue stream, and now it's like, oh no, we don't really want it to be that good. Like, this is happening too far. So I think it's a tough spot. It's a real tough spot for him because it's political mixed in with all the gender equality stuff. But the be all and end all of all gender equality and social responsibility is P&Ls. Do you want people to go bankrupt trying to play the equality card in a professional sports league? Or do you want them to be sustainable long term so you have a league for your daughters and your granddaughters to play in? It's the latter, in my opinion, and you got to eat a shit sandwich for the next 4 or 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Much like NBA players did pro back in the day, NBL players the same, had second jobs. Like, it wasn't always what it is today. You know, those leagues were built on the backs of people that had to really grind, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, they're like I said it over and over. They're like the NBA in the '60s. You have some really good players. You have some fans that like going, but the league just doesn't make money. It reminds me of a story. The previous owner of the Memphis Grizzlies, Michael Heisley, brilliant guy, just came from nothing and built up an empire of like communication companies and things like that. He had an assistant coach that came in and complained about his playoff share, and Mike, Mr. Heisley was like, "All right, I get you, but here's the thing. How about the last 6 years where you motherfuckers didn't make the playoffs? Did I ask you for your fucking part of your paycheck back when I was losing my ass? Now we have a little bit of success and you want to come with your fucking handout. That's fine. But what about the last 6? Can I take money? Can we make that retroactive about fucking taking some of your fucking money to help pay my expenses? It's the same thing. It's just, you got to make it sustainable, and it will be sustainable, in my opinion, in the next decade. I don't know how long, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, it will be sustainable because you have some really good players coming up the pike. You got Caitlin Clark there. You've got some really good players on top of Caitlin Clark. She's the moneymaker right now. Then you got some good players, and then they're spending more and more money. These coaches are making $500,000 a year. Like the money that's shelling out. It used to be like, I remember when I was with Tim Grover in Chicago. The Chicago Sky was an expansion franchise. Guy named Stephen Key that was the first head coach. He played at Boston University when I was in high school, so I was talking to him. And I think he was telling me he was making like $100,000. Now these coaches are making Becky Hammond makes like $1 million. There's another coach. It's There's a guy that came and coached Phoenix. He's making like $1 million or $2 million. Now most of the other coaches are making 300, 400, 500. So their expenses are going way up. But the money that's coming into the game because of the new media rights deal and some of the other things, they're going to make money. In the next 5 or 6 years, they'll be profitable, in my opinion. And then the players that are coming up, Juju Watkins, a point guard of South Carolina, Paige Buchers is another player out of UConn who's coming. She's exciting. So you're going to get some exciting players to go with Caitlin and the rest of the players. But when they start crying about revenue sharing, you're not making money. And like I said, if they would start businesses, they would not think this way. If they start businesses and they're losing their ass, and then their employees came up and I want more money, they'll be like, fuck no. But it's not them. It's not their money. They're spending other people's money. So they don't really feel the effect because they get their check every 2 weeks. But all these other organizations in the league that have to pick up these tabs, it makes it for interesting conversation that, it's a fucking joke. They haven't made money in 1 year. So
and the quality piece, the quality piece is there from the men's league. They are funding the league right now. If you took the NBA completely away from the WNBA brand, the WNBA brand they'd be bankrupt within a couple of months. You'd just be like, fuck all right, owners of WNBA teams, you guys all need to put in a couple of $1 million to cover expenses. They'll be done, finished, right? So people that want to argue that the quality piece, it's actually happening that way. Like it's trickling down from NBA revenue is going down to that league because the NBA understands they need a good women's league for young girls to play basketball and all that. Totally get it. So it's just it's not there yet, and it's probably going to take 5-10 more years. But it's a me now society we live in, pro, as you know, and it's like you got to be patient. You got to make sure that it's built the right way and the foundations are there, and hopefully that happens soon. All right, useful, useless. The Dallas Mavericks, pro, have $130+ million sidelined. Useful, useless.
It's useful because of the impact it has on their roster, and like we talked about, that they're borderline forfeiting games. So it is useful, even though it's sort of a freak thing, with all these players being hurt. But I would say it's useful for sure.
Did you see Philly have 95.8% of their cap currently sidelined? It was like something like
really?
something like that. It was like they currently have $6 million worth of salary playing.
Is that right?
NBA games. Yeah, I saw a post on it the other day, but
Yeah, Maxi just got hurt, so that's most of it.
Yeah,
And then
that makes
obviously
sense, yeah.
Embiid,
Maxey,
fucking Paul George
Embiid.
Paul George is on my fantasy team. He's fucking he's gonna see a specialist.
yeah, like 95.8% of their cap.
Yeah, that's wild.
Maxi,
I mean,
George,
the Mavs are still in it.
Embiid.
That's what's impressive, bro. The Mavs are still in 10. Like, I know they're 2-8. They've lost their last 3. Phoenix are a fucking nightmare. They might scratch if they scratch in. I think that I know they had some wins on the board early, but if they scratch into a plane with 130 plus million sideline and all their stars gone, like it's actually an all right season.
Jason Kidd has those guys playing hard as hell. Like in all year, he's been like that. I don't know him as a coach. I don't know him. I met him a couple of times. I don't really know his philosophy or whatever like that. But those guys compete, and he's usually pretty calm about things. I mean, he's got those guys playing hard. It doesn't matter if like it was Luka, Kyrie, Lively, everybody's in the lineup, or they got 5 fucking guys and 2 ball boys playing. Like that guy has done a hell of a job. And that's part of it, man. I mean, getting guys to play hard and believe that and not quitting. I've seen it happen where teams quit on guys, and I've seen guys like Doc Rivers, when I had him when we were in Boston, and they were awful. They were one of the worst teams in the league. He got it to a point where those guys never quit, never went in the media and popped off, oh, this and that. I mean, he kept those guys together. It's a lot like what Jason Kidd's doing now with this team. They've got probably the worst talent in the league as far as what's available compared to the 29 other teams, and with all their injuries and things, and the guys got them competing almost every night. They got blown out. Who'd they get blown out? Houston blew them out, but most of these games they've been in, man. I give him all the credit in the world.
Yeah, I agree. They're playing hard. That's all they can do, and they might scratch into a plane. All right, Jokic had the first 30, 20, and 20 game in NBA history a few weeks ago versus the Suns, bro. Useful, useless.
That's useful, Bogues. Anybody who says anything, look, you could have your own opinions on who's the best player in the league, this and that, but like when people start going below the belt on Jokic about this and that, I mean, the impact this guy has in the game with, his body. Forget about this. I mean, the stats he puts up, he wins, his box, the box score plus minus. I mean, leading the league the last few years. We talked about that pre-show. I mean, the guy's ridiculous, man. Definitely useful.
Yeah, useful, man. Those numbers are just wild. And the game numbers are inflated a little bit because of pace of play, but 30, 20, and 20 for a guy that's unathletic and slow and overweight, like absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, just a real nice game and a nice line that someone's finally got. Westbrook was close a few times, but yeah, Jokic finally got it. The Golden State Warriors 14-1 with Butler in the lineup, bro. Useful, useless.
Definitely useful.
Yep.
I mean, there's no, or they're 14-1 without Schroeder in the lineup. you could have that motherfucker on there too. But that's unbelievable. No, I mean, he's had a huge impact on those guys, and yeah. I would say definitely useful.
Yeah, useful. He's been fantastic. So, Aussies of the week. We're going to do Aussies of the 2 weeks because of the Cyclone Pro, your favorite thing to talk about. But it's going
tornado. But go ahead.
Yeah, Cyclone here. It's going to be Josh Giddey. He's been balling. He did get hurt late last week, but 24.6 points, 11 rebounds, 8.3 assists. He's been on a tear since All-Star break. This has been his best run since he's been in the league the last 10-odd games, and then unfortunately did his ankle, came out on a foot, but he's now at 8, Dyson at 5, Simmons at 1, and he's playing really good basketball, keeping them in a fringe playing mix, bro. So we'll hopefully continue this form and get to a play-in and get some experience under his belt leading a team there.
I mean, he's been excellent. Not a lot of bright spots for them this year, but I mean, he's been playing well, through all of that, all the injuries and all the problems they've had, with those things. But, guys shooting almost 38 from 3, 79 from the line. I mean,
he's putting it together.
He's getting better as a player.
Yeah, it's just consistency, putting it together. He's not the quickest. He's not the most athletic, but I was watching some clips yesterday. He does such a good job of just getting feet in the paint. He moves. He's not blowing by you, but if you get on the side of him, he's strong enough to shoulder you, create some space. He's got a nice floater from both sides. And he's long and strong enough to finish and can shoot decent amount from the free throw line, a decent clip at circa 80%. So his trajectory, he still hasn't fulfilled his potential by any means. That 3-ball we've spoken about at length. That's the thing that opens his game up long term. If he can just consistently shoot it at high 30s, only needs to take a couple of games. So you can't just, there were periods where they played him at the 4 and they'd put big men on him and dare him to shoot. Happened to OKC in the playoffs last season. That'll probably happen again in a play-in if they make it. They're currently in 10. They're pretty clear of Toronto. They're 4.5 games ahead, and Miami are in a slide just above them. But it's been good to see Josh Giddey, playing some good basketball. So watch that space. Fact or fake news, Pro? What do you got?
Yeah, Bogues. Here's one for you. So after like 4+ years of doing the show, you take a guy named Andrew Bogues takes a coaching job, and I get an audio message for a text message instead of a fucking phone call. You think that's a rat fuck move? Fact or fake news? Is that clear enough for the listeners that don't understand the question?
Well, you were asleep,
so
right?
After 4+ years. So after 4+ years,
were you asleep?
I get an.
Hold on, were you asleep?
No, the audio message. I was watching my son when you sent it. It was like 8 o'clock at night. Fuck that. I don't get a phone call, Bogues.
Oh wow. He's in his feelings about a phone call.
Trent, fact or fake news? You're doing a show with a guy 4+ years, over 160 shows or so. That's probably like 2 weeks, 24 hours a day. It sort of equals out to. You think that the rich fuck can pick up the phone and have a phone call instead of an audio message? That's an NBA move right there, Bogues.
Well, you know what else is an NBA move?
NBL. That's a pro coach.
You know what else is an NBA move?
What is that?
Showing up 7 minutes late for this podcast.
Oh, fuck out of here.
So we're kind of even.
Bogues, don't deflect it. We've been doing this show for 4 years.
We're kind of even. If you want to talk about NBA
an audio message.
Well, when's the last time we spoke on the
Bogues,
phone?
come on.
We don't speak on the phone. The conversation was going to happen pre-recording, which we had today before we got on the podcast.
Bogues,
like the phone calls.
You're in development.
It's better to be.
You're in develop.
I want to look into your eyes when I told you via video link.
You're in. Jesus Christ. You're in development, folks. When these young lads are coming to you for advice, you gotta give that personal touch, folks.
Incorrect,
help
bro.
You here.
Incorrect.
Really?
The new age don't like phone calls, so you're fucking wrong. So if you worked in the league the last 10 years, you'd know that. They love a text message. That's the one thing you gotta tweak in your game, mate. I'm all about in-person conversations, but you live in fucking Dallas and I live in Australia, so it makes things a little bit hard. But young kids like text these days, unfortunately.
You broke my heart, Fredo. You broke my heart. But hey,
that was your cholesterol, bro. That was your cholesterol.
Cholesterol is fine. I'm happy for you, Bogues. I'm glad you got this thing going. But I'll tell you what, though. I thought we could have added another fact or fake news. This story was very much like the Luka trade when it would happen at like 11:30 at night. The cyclone or tornado, whatever the fuck you call it, that happens, no show, and then all of a sudden it just gets reported. So
well, it was reported during the day in Australia, so much to your
chagrin,
brain power, Australia's in a different time zone to where you live. The world doesn't surround itself around the US.
Could we get Trent to come in on this conversation? Trent, you think a phone call would have been in order? We didn't do this show like 8 times. We've done it like 150 times or so. Like, do you think a phone call was in order? And I know, these paychecks are going to come to an end after the show's done for you. So I understand. So I know he'll probably give you some severance pay. But, do you think a phone call, a 5-minute conversation is better than an audio message?
It just sounds like he was just trying to respect your sleep time, pro. The 14-hour time difference.
Jesus Christ, 8 p.m.
You said you were on the couch with your family, right? Family times. What's more important?
No.
You shouldn't be on your phone anyway.
Voice note sounds pretty personal to me. A voice message is a step up from a text. 100%. It's not a phone call. but it's not a text
I
message.
don't want to interrupt your
It's a
family
bit
time.
personal.
And I know how important food is to you. It's around dinner time there. Didn't want to take away from that, bro.
Bogues, the fat jokes are not. It doesn't really come into this conversation. Bogues, a phone call, brother.
Phone call,
just
okay.
just go the extra mile.
Noted. Next time I'll call you, and when you don't pick up, I'll leave you a voice memo. How's that work?
There you go. See, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. That's all right, Bogues. Hey, we still got until what? The NBA Finals.
Yeah, and
we got plenty of shows.
You can still, like we discussed, you can still do the Road Bogues podcast just without Bogues. No problem. Listeners, let me know if you want to hear just Pro's beautiful voice moving forward from July. We're happy to do it.
All right, if we get, why don't you put that out there? And if we get 10,000 people to like the post, we'll redo that. We'll keep the show going.
Yeah, good luck setting up all your cameras or flight train out there for you. You can have all this equipment that we've set up here. You can bring it all over to Dallas.
It'll be like the WNBA revenue share. No, fuck that. We're good. We're good.
All right, bro.
Well, guys,
we'll see you next week.
Hey, good luck on. I'm looking forward to seeing hearing what you guys talk about this segment.
I'm going to talk about you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's about time.
Later.
All right, fellas.
See you, man. Later. All right, finish on some NBL stuff. Or Australia stuff. Congratulations to Coach Adam Caporn, officially the Boomers head coach. Dean Vickerman will be involved, from what I understand, with the Asia Cup and then go on as an assistant. There's some rumblings around Quinn Snyder and his role. I'm not too sure where that all is. Consultant role, how that works. Is it on ground? Is it not? Don't know. Watch that space. But I think a very, very good appointment. I was part of the selection panel, so consulting for Basketball Australia. Our panel gave that decision. Then it's obviously up to Basketball Australia to go with that direction. And interviewed very, very well, did a fantastic job. I think what appealed was the fact that Adam has been through every level of Australian basketball, overseas. He's done, so for those not familiar, he was with the Centre of Excellence, AIS, did some stuff there, did the junior national team, been an assistant with the senior national team, then goes to St. Mary's, Australian Pipeline, assistant coach of the Brooklyn Nets, coached a G League team, and now he's with the Washington Wizards as an assistant. We just think that he knows the bones of the program. I think as a long-term plan for our program and for the Boomers program, I think it's a very good appointment. Obviously, the one thing with Adam is besides the G League stuff, head coaching experience is limited, but this is how a lot of good coaches start, from assistant coaching positions. So I think it'll all work out. He'll put in so much time and effort. He's super passionate about the project, the program and the project at hand, but the program and the Aussie Boomers culture and everything with that, I think he's going to continue to make it better with that young group. A lot of the younger guys are familiar with him from junior ranks as well. So it was a nice little segue, and one that kind of came out of left field for a lot of people, but he went through the ringer with interviews and just continued to progress through to the next round, and then all of a sudden he did a fantastic job. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes and builds his staff and gets things rolling.
Yeah, I think for people that know Australian basketball and have seen Cape's growth within that and what he did with the COE program, he produced multiple lottery picks at the COE, which hadn't been done for a long time. Yeah. Then going to the NBA and dealing with that level of basketball, he, to me at least, was the clear favourite candidate for the job out of those that were leaked. So I think Basketball Australia's made a great decision, and I think the next steps for the program moving forward is who he surrounds himself with in terms of assistants and stuff, and then how he approaches these smaller windows like the Asia Cup, and how he's working with Vickerman to make sure that there is no drop-off for the program, because a lot of people don't realise these guys are playing these Asia Cups and these other windows are generally younger guys that in 5 to 8 years could be in the men's program at a World Cup.
Jack McVeigh.
Exactly,
Magnay,
right?
Daly's played in some of those windows.
Exactly, and I watched them playing World Cup qualifiers that were meaningless games against teams we shouldn't be playing against, but you need to have the culture aligned from those teams all the way up
100%.
to the Olympic team. So I think that's going to be a really important part of Caporn's job, making sure that no matter what tournament we're playing in, no matter what the team looks like, the culture for them is the exact same as the guys that are going to the Olympic Games.
And offensive sets, defensive schemes, everything segues up. It's a wasted resource otherwise to have it run completely differently to your main program. You might as well utilize that time. And okay, you're not going to have your Josh Giddeys and these kind of Dyson Daniels, Jock Landale's involved in the Asia Cup stuff, but it's going to segue nicely. So if you do have a young gun that comes in, he's familiar with the sets, he knows what we expect, he knows, hey, we ran that at the Asia Cup, we're running the same thing with the Boomers main program. You might as well utilize it the proper way. And I think that was a bit of an issue for BA because of the Asia Cup stuff, the way it came so quickly. There was no real thought around preparation with coaches. It was kind of constantly a Band-Aid coach was hired. Gorge came in because Marnus was out, and then because Brett Brown was out, and then it was all over the place. So there was no real time to put together a plan. They've got a plan now. 27-28's coming, and then hopefully, Capes is around for the long-term Brisbane. That's the main thing to make sure this program for the next decade is in a competitive spot. So that'll be interesting. We'll touch on Illawarra United. It's been a very interesting series. Illawarra had control in game 1 at home. They let that slip. They've done that twice now. They did the same thing in game 3, but then game 2, Illawarra noticeably just outworked Melbourne. Offensive rebounds, second chance points, just grinded it, got a win. And then game 3, again, Illawarra in control on the scoreboard. But the second half, for basketball purists, just a Delhi masterclass, just completely controlled the tempo of that whole game. Bringing the ball up, pointing, you back hard here, you go get Chris, you just hit a 3, go down screen for him, lob to lead, like 11 assists on 0 turnovers, 16 points, phenomenal, but not stats that are like 20 and 20, but just he completely dominated that game, and you could just see the grind of United just slowly getting to Illawarra. Illawarra couldn't score. They couldn't get stops when they needed to. They were giving up second chance points. They were getting outworked, and that was the game, and it was kind of flipped on its head at halftime. Really impressive performance by Delhi. It's 2-1 going back to Melbourne. No one's won on their home floor. I picked Illawarra in this one. Did I actually?
Yeah, I think you went Illawarra in 5.
Illawarra in 5. And it's looking like that could be unlikely, but it's been a great series thus, and I think it could be, it could be 3-0 for Illawarra, right? Like full credit to United. They've looked out of game 1 and game 3 at times. They looked out of those games, and then just bang, they just grind together a run, and it's all. I think it's Delhi. It's just Delhi orchestrating it. Even if he doesn't have big stats, he just continues to find a way to get his team an important bucket, an important floater, an important 3, gets to the free throw line for 3 free throws, like just ultimate IQ guy, and been phenomenal this series.
That was going to be my main point as well. Watching the game last night, you could really see the Hawks had control for those first 3.5 quarters, with Shea Ili out of the lineup and those 2 guards kind of able to get to where they want, do what they want to do. And then defensively, they were just getting out and running and playing to their strengths, being a high-tempo team, a lot of fast break opportunities. But what you saw in that third quarter is Illawarra going for that haymaker, going for that big shot that was going to go 13.
Up to 11, right?
They're up 11 points, and maybe 4 or 5 possessions in a row just put up absolutely terrible 3-point shots.
Hickey especially, yeah.
Hickey and Darius Days both guilty of just absolutely trying to force whatever, like going away. Where they're really good is when they give it into Sam at the post and just
Days,
play out
Days was great on the block. They went away from it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he had 8 points really early, came out strong, was finishing great around the rim, and then just starts shooting these threes that are just outside the scope of his game unless it's a kick out or something, catch and shoot. So that was where Melbourne got that little bit of light, and then you spoke to it perfectly. Delhi's just ability to control the game, like you see in fast breaks, him pointing guys off to the left side of the court and then finding open guys. Like it's just so good to watch if you can understand and really see what he's doing, and then especially in the pick and roll, man, it's amazing how he is able to either
Takes his time.
Chris off a pin down or the roller just without looking at him. It's really cool to watch. I think you're right. I think it has to give way at some point where a team wins on their home floor, and unfortunately for Illawarra going into this United game, I think losing that game 3 at home.
Andre Kell was probably going to be out. Didn't look good.
He came down funny on that right knee.
So
like kind of.
And I thought that Illawarra would have the advantage with Ili out because, like, who do you put Delhi on, Harvey or Kell? They put him on Kell because Delhi's got a bigger body, and I thought Clark was actually half decent on Harvey at times. Clark was decent on Harvey, but it just I think the adjustment again of putting Marcus Lee on Hickey and daring him to shoot that three, it just completely stymied their offense. I thought they should have got. I know Hickey does a lot of good things, but there was a moment in that game where Hickey had taken the 2 open ones in the third and bricked them. I think he should have dragged him earlier and probably benched him for the most part and got a bit more offense out, especially once they saw their offense was sputtering. It's not like United were elite offensively. They just grinded you to death. But Illawarra couldn't put scoreboard pressure at the other end, and Hickey just killed their spacing because they had Lee literally standing under the basket. So any action they're running, they've got a big stuck in the middle. So Froling can't get going, Days can't get going. So if you're Hickey, you almost need to be a habitual screen setter. If your guys, stand in the paint, go and set screens on Harvey and Cal and try to get those guys open for threes. I think that adjusts. I think Tatum eventually did it, but it was too late. The momentum of the game was gone. So I'd be interested to see what they do with Hickey. I like him on the block. I like him in transition. But when it grinds down to a half-court game and they're not guarding him from the three, he's got to knock 1 or 2 down. But even we saw in this game, he knocked some down and they said, congratulations, do it again.
Exactly.
Do it again, knock it down again. And then they were getting one opportunity. It was a brick and they come down and they'd score on you. And that was a ball game right there.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky. I think Illawarra have a tendency to go away from what's working. I think when they can get the ball into Sam, he's doubled pretty much every time.
Game 2.
Yeah, and
awesome.
And his ability to just make the right play, even like super late shot clock, we're talking 2-3 seconds left, he'll get it off to the guy that's got a layup or got a wide open three. Yeah. And I think Illawarra just tend to go away from that. And I understand Harvey and Trey and those guys want to have that moment or be that guy in those situations, but it always just seems so forced, and that's why they're so bad in these fourth quarters, because for whatever reason they think they need to go to this hero ball and like have a big shot or do whatever.
It saved them in game 1 after they gave up the lead.
100%,
The hero ball did, but it's not sustainable. And United actually have those issues sometimes too. Like they'll go hero ball with Clark or CG, but much better kind of resume to do that. They really only have Harvey, who's good at the hero ball, but some of his shots are wild as well, and you got to take the good with the bad. So it's interesting. I also think Froling's space just wasn't there with Hickey in the lineup. When you got a couple of non-shooters out there, if you got like say a Peatling's an okay 3-point shooter, but not an en masse 3-point shooter. Like you'll knock 1 or 2 down, and then you got Hickey as well. It's like there's not a lot of space for Froling to work. So it's like you kind of like you can really cramp the paint up and let him swing to Hickey wide open. You're like, if he knocks it down, he knocks it down. You kind of live with it, right? The scout says that he's shooting 20%. It's like, it's going to favour us over the long haul. And that's what it did to United. You even heard the commentators in the first half when Hickey hit 1 or 2 say, oh, it's time they move up. They need to start moving up, putting their hand up. But they're like, no, we're not. We think over the course of this game, the numbers are going to reflect that he's now going to brick 3 because he's made 2. He's going to get back down to his 20% 3-point shooter. And that's exactly what happened. So ballsy move by Vickerman to go that way and just dare him to do it. But it's worked. And I think Lee's been real good in this series, like really, really good. I think Lowe's been a non-factor. Yeah. And also Jack White, like horrendous game 2. For him to bounce back the way he did with all the pressure on him, came out aggressive. They're on the first play for him to shoot a 3, knocks it down and didn't look back. And an elite, efficient offensive performance. If they get even half of that from White, half of what Delhi brought, CG does what he does, Clark does what he does on their home floor, and Lee does what he's been doing, they should win. Yeah. But you just can't count this Illawarra team out. I think they're deep for a reason. I wouldn't be surprised now with Cal out, a Lee off the bench hits 3 threes, or one of their bench role guys, Blanchfield, all of a sudden has a game. That's where United need to be careful because it's next man up. And I think Cal is a ball-dominant guy. You take him out of the lineup. Now Harvey's your complete ball-dominant guy and a bunch of role-playing shooters around him. It could kind of swing the series as well. Yeah. Because now you're not trying to get Cal, and I think Cal's been poor for most of the series, where they were force-feeding him, trying to get him going. Hasn't been efficient, hasn't been great. So it'd be interesting to see what adjustment Tatum makes there.
Yeah, and Kel has a really bad habit of playing outside their offense and going away from what they're trying to run, or like they have a great, off the ball movement, off the ball screens, handoffs, and Kel has a tendency to pull it out, ask for a high pick and roll, and try and attack. Yeah. I think to your point, if they can go back to having Harvey is a tentative superstar, like he never comes out into a game and starts putting up crazy shots from the jump. He warms himself up to that. I think if they can do, to your point, take out Hickey of these lineups, bring in a Lee, bring in a Toddy, they've got the shooting ability to do it. Play Peatling at the 4, at least it gives you some kind of shooting ability and you space the floor out. It could look very different for United, especially with Shaley not in the lineup. It loses their key defender on a guy like Harvey. So I think it'll be interesting, but I think to your point around Delhi, like Delhi's ability to get Jack White 20 points. Like, yes, Jack was aggressive, but that whole game, Delhi was looking for Jack to score.
Trying to get him going.
100%. And that was on 9 shots.
Yeah, 8 for 9, yeah.
So,
with
like,
threes, yeah.
There was spaces there where I felt like Jack could even be still more aggressive and get up to that 13, 15 shot mark because he has the ability to do that. And I think that's where Illawarra should be scared. Like, if Jack's doing this now, if Delhi can maintain this control over these games, I don't see Illawarra kind of getting a sniff.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And even does Days play more because he can stretch the floor. Yeah. I think the Peatling thing, good role player, but I think Olbricks has been good for this series.
It's just his decision making at times. I feel like he forces passes and makes silly decisions.
But his plus minus, I think he's been one of the most productive guys. It's been limited minutes for the most part, but for the series, he's had impact just on he crashes the board every time. He keeps some tips alive. Yeah. Gives them second possessions. Not the best decision maker like most young guys. Right. But I think Peatling's more of a steadier. Like I'm not going to do anything outside of it. Open three, shoot it, rebound, set screens. Olbrich, kind of that needle mover. Yeah, can go the other way. But in this series, I think spot minutes have been really good. So maybe they find more for him. Maybe you go to some small ball lineups with him and Days to spread the floor for Harvey. But they need to generate some movement and get some movement at the offensive end. Unfortunately, with Hickey there in transition, he's elite. Open floor, he's elite. Half court grind, I think it's the opposite. And if they're going to dare him to shoot that 3, I think they got to find another way. Like I said, when we used to muck guys really play off him, those guys set perimeter screens. It's hard for now Lee. If he goes and cracks Harvey's man on just a down screen or a side screen on the 3-point line, and someone else has a ball, they throw it to Harvey. Lee can't get out quick enough to contest that. Yeah. So I would just emphasize Hickey just move, create havoc with your movement, set screens, cut, dive. You don't have to just stand there and be like, I got to make 2 or 3 of these threes for them to make them respect me. They're not going to. It's clear as day. Yeah. So you got to find other ways to impact the game.
And he's really good late clock, like a couple times where it didn't look like Illawarra was going to get a shot off. When he attacks the paint and kind of gets to that reverse or gets 2 feet in the paint, he's super effective. I think for him, he just needs to make better decisions on, when it's the appropriate time to kind of take those shots. There was a time where he came off a ball screen to the left, shooting, fading away, 3-point shot with about 8 seconds left on the shot clock in the third quarter there when they're trying to hit that haymaker. It's just like stuff like that. You kind of scratch your head. I do think there's a world where they can leave him in, but he just makes better decisions on attacking the closeouts, 2 feet in the paint. You're either looking for the drop off for Froling or a Peatling or an Olbrich.
The issue with that is that they got Lee standing in the paint. Right. So it takes away from Hickey's kind of number one skill of attacking the paint, Euroing, and because you got to finish over that big fella.
100%. So, but I feel like at times with Sam sitting in that drop, like that the handoffs there, if not, they're completely collapsing on Hickey and Froling, and you've got shooters. You got the ability to have Days out there, Lee, Toddy Blanchfield, Harvey's obviously.
They need more shooting out there. I think they need more shooting out there. Especially at the 4 spot at times. I mean, Peeling's an okay 3-point shooter, but
you think Darius? I think him is questionable as well because you saw in that game he's really he's like Harrell in the sense that he wants to get the crowd going. And
I think it's spot minutes. I think it's like he gives you a good 3 or 4 minutes, get him out.
Yeah, right.
Let him calm down, then give him another 3 or 4 minutes.
You see, he gets a bit excited.
Yeah, then he starts to do like two or 3 bad shots. But it's like they should and just they need to get guys in the post more. I mean, I know they're throwing it to Froling. He's got no room to move, so that's why I'd like to see. I think if you've got Days,
Olbrich even,
but if you've got Days at the 4 with Froling and he's in the weak side corner, you can't come off Days. Like he's as much as he takes bad shots, feet set from 3, he's pretty decent. Yeah. So and then you've got a 3 in Lee and then Harvey and then maybe someone else. It's just that once you throw that Hickey piece in with the Froling, that's 2 non-shooters. Right. They're going to muck the shit out of the paint, and they do a great job of just having a big on guard Hickey and cross match. They had Delhi guarding Peatling and Olbrich at times. Yeah, right. At the 4. Yeah, because they put Lee on Hickey, right? So that's where it gets real interesting. So it's just going to be a chess game of adjustments. So we'll see where that goes. But so far, pretty good series of what you want. There hasn't been a blatant blowout. You hope there isn't one on Wednesday. That's the worst thing for finals. I think it'll be a close game, and United's going to have to earn it. Where you probably favour United is they were in this position last year, and it's still fresh. It's still fresh for how they lost that series. Everyone thought they had full control of it. Yeah. Then it goes to game 5 and they somehow cough that late turnover up. McVay hits an all-time great shot, and you're like, how the hell did we lose that series?
Yeah.
So I think that's still, you see him even after game 3, they huddled up, and it's like you'd see CG and Delhi like, guys, like don't celebrate this shit. Like we've got one more, and I think that's what's probably going to get them over the line is that bitter taste they had from last season that was so close and they let it slip. It'll make for a good series.
Yeah, and Illawarra don't really have that veteran leadership that Melbourne have. Like you can see in the huddles and stuff how vocal CG and Delhi and Ian Clark and those guys are. For Illawarra, they've really got Todd Blanchfield, who like great career, 16 years, but didn't win. Hasn't won a championship. Hasn't been in those situations either. Yeah. I think Melbourne have a lot of championship experience and a lot of winners.
And they don't have a calming, like they're a young, brash team, and that's why they're good. But in those tight games, that calming influence of a Delhi, where it's like, oh, all right, like, you know, I'll get us to our spots. They don't. You saw that in the fourth quarter with Illawarra. It was just like their offense was like, what the hell you got? Like it looks nothing like the Illawarra of the regular season, right? Where they're scoring 100+ points. It was like janky, like, oh, I'm half open. Do I shoot it? And then it just their flow was just screwed up. And then after that, it's hard to get back. So. New Orleans is coming to Melbourne. It's been officially announced as October 3rd and October 5th. I love the fact that an NBA team's coming to Melbourne. They are playing both the Melbourne teams. Is that fair? Who knows? But what I hate about it is it's on the same weekend as other NBL games. That's what I just don't understand. From a fan perspective, from an ownership perspective, it's like we're now, our game, whatever that is that weekend, there'll be NBL games that are now, people are going to be tuning into that and taking away from your actual prime in-season product. They're not going to be watching that as much because there's an NBA team playing an NBL team. So I would have liked to have seen these games on a weekday, given those teams maybe a bye that weekend or one game on a Sunday, but play them on a Tuesday, Thursday. So it's still going to fill up. I know it's a weeknight, it's a school night. It's an NBA team. It's still going to get 18,000 people to the game. The fact they've put it on a weekend, I think, is a little disappointing because I think you're just not shitting on your own product, but your own mainstay peak product. You know, NBA would never do this. They never have, a game against Real Madrid Basketball Club in December, right when their season's going on. It makes, you're taken away from you. That's your product. Your regular season that's the pinnacle. NBL Blitz, the NBL Hoops Fest, this game, an All-Star game, the Great Summer Shootout, great. They should all be far second to your product, which is the NBL regular season. And I think that gets lost sometimes because we know those games are happening. It's a box tick. That's what people want to watch and support. I think all this other stuff, the gimmicky stuff, is great, but you don't want it to be topping your actual product. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, and I mean, NBL in previous years have had a tendency to do this not only with the stuff you mentioned, but even the NBA like preseason stuff to them and sending teams off during your regular season, and you get them back and they're cooked for 2 weeks, and it like those teams never usually
we opt out for that very reason. We did one when I played it was in Hawaii against the Clippers, and it was great and a bit of a shorter trip, but we opt out of them for that very reason because the data's saying that those teams have fried for 2 or 3 weeks, especially in New Zealand. They had to come back and then go to Perth and then go to Cairns and then come back, So, and I get from Larry's point of view back in the day, trying to establish that relationship. I think that's now established. I don't know if we need to continue that. Maybe one team a year. We don't need to have 3 or 4 teams going. But yeah, because it's hard to send teams in summer league because no one has their rosters formed. But like I love the NBA game coming. Love all that. I'm not detracting from that. I don't really care that it's 2 Melbourne teams. That makes sense. Like whatever. Like they should sell out both those games. Should Sydney have got one? Should Perth have got one? Who knows? But I think the travel plays its part from the US. But it's just don't do them the same time as. I hope on those dates when they schedule the NBL games, they don't have NBL games on those 2 days. I hope they have them either side of them. Have them on the Thursday, Saturday, and have the NBA ones on the Friday, Sunday. No problem. But if you've got games at the same time, I think it dilutes your own product.
Do you think part of it as well, like they've been trying to get this done for 10, 15 years, getting an NBA team over here is just kind of like, what do you need?
Yeah, what do you need?
This weekend, great, works for us, and you just kind of make it happen sort of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's what happened. The NBA probably wants prime days. They wouldn't want it on a regular weekday. And obviously for people wondering why New Orleans, this has been probably a negotiation that's happened in the last 2 years. So Dyson Daniels was on that team. So that would have been why that was organised. And now he's gone. That's just the business of the NBA. So that's why it was that team. It had a bit of an Australian affiliation, but it is a shame that he's now not there. But hopefully, I doubt Zion's going to suit up. But if he does, I will be beyond shocked.
What did you make of that, of David Griffin like publicly really making a point of like all our guys are going to be here, everyone's going to be suited up? Like I would bet everything that CJ, Zion, these guys are not going to be.
I think it's going to be mainly the younger guys.
You know, you're going to get injury list.
It's their first 2 games too, I believe.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to have to have a look, but I don't think they have games before that. I think this is
they're talking about doing a chunk of their training camp here in Australia prior to the games is what David Griffin said publicly.
That's a cool thing.
So this will be their first 2 like run outs as a team.
Yeah, that will be cool, and hopefully they can integrate the community with that a little bit. But I highly doubt you'll see those guys, and if you do, you'll see them like my first Steph, Clay, myself, Draymond, our first couple of preseason games would be like Steve would be like, all right, you guys are playing 1 quarter and you're done, or at best you might see him at best, but it's not going to be a full game, and generally coaches will sit guys for the whole second half.
That's why I found it so hard to believe. You don't see these guys play against NBA teams in preseason.
Yeah, exactly.
You got them traveling half across the world, training
and
camp.
they're not going to have a feel of affiliation to like, we need to do this for the Aussie fans. No. So hopefully you see them a little bit, but fans need to be aware. You're going to see NBA players.
It'll be more like fan activation, community stuff, like you said.
Still be a
not
great
the
event.
Game.
Still be a great event, but if people, and you know how the Australian public can get with this stuff. I went to watch Zion for 40 minutes and I paid this much money. It's like, it's quite clear. Do your research that they're not going to play 40 minutes. If you see him for 15, that's a win. That is a fucking win. So quickly, Xavier Cooks, 1 month suspension for his indiscretion, for his drug indiscretion there, which will be served in the offseason and has been retroactively served by missing the last 2 games. So he, I believe, will be all good to go for next NBL season. Disappointing. X's, there's no one more disappointed than X with all of this. Very remorseful, made a mistake, and will get better, bigger and stronger from it. It's just one of those things that young people go through at times. Obviously not performance enhancing, nothing to do with any of that stuff. That was all squashed pretty quickly once people thought it was that. It's nothing to do with that. Made a mistake and now needs to serve his consequences, take his medicine and come back stronger for it. And finally, Christian Doolittle re-signs for 3 years. Absolutely great move by Perth. Kind of pissed because we're hoping we could at least have a discussion with him in the free agency. But well done Perth. I loved his game. I thought he was so good for them. Great in small ball lineups. Can play multiple positions. When he first came, I didn't really know what he was, whether he was a 3 or a 4 or what. But he's a Draymond Green type in our league where he can play multiple positions. He can do multiple different things. He can guard multiple positions. Love the way he plays. This does sniff like maybe Cotton is gone, that they've locked him up so quickly and for so long. Writing is on the wall. I think Cotton, the Japan thing probably is growing more legs. So I'd be interested to see where that all goes. But I think Doolittle, even the games they had without Bryce this season when he was hurt or out, he was integral for them. And if they can get someone back that's 50, 60% as good as Bryce and put him in that squad, I think they've still got a pretty good squad. So I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I thought the fact that they got this done so quick, and especially this long term, I thought this was their final kind of nod to Bryce, like, hey, we're going to stay competitive, like stay in Perth. But it's interesting. It's a great signing for Perth. I just, now moving forward, if Bryce goes, like, are you structuring the team around Doolittle? Or like, I don't know how
Still
that all works.
You need a guard scorer.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you can find a guy that's just half as good as Bryce, you still be competitive.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to, just because they've lost Bryce, they're not going to be a bottom 4 team, in my opinion. They're still
that's not like the Wildcats.
Webster can still step in and play minutes if needed.
Yeah.
Don't know what his situation is. I don't know. I think he's got 1 more year left. They got Pinder there.
Henschel.
Henschel's a free agent, I think.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
Who else do they have? Yes, I mean, does Wagstaff go again? But that's a big piece that you've now solidified your bigs.
Do you go get Windler if you're Perth?
At an import spot, it all depends what your other import is. If you can get a starting, legitimate starting
Depending
guard,
Bryce.
yeah, legitimate starting. If Bryce is back, I'll get Windler and Doolittle, 100%.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep those 3. They all fit each other well and they complement each other well. Another year together. I think there's something to be said about keeping groups together in the NBL. It doesn't happen very often. If you can keep your imports together for 2 or 3 years, I think it gives you a great advantage. Just on, you don't have to waste time in camp playing together. pros and that's your strength, that's your weakness. Bryce likes the ball here. Doolittle likes it. Like I think it's huge.
Yeah,
you don't have to waste time doing that. So it will be interesting, but I think Perth will be okay. But must commend the Perth Wildcats for getting that done so quickly, because I know he would have been a target for 9 teams that weren't named Perth. Would at least try to have a conversation with him, because he's been and just seems like a no nonsense guy. No trouble. Plays the right way. Has some shit about him. Will wrestle and fight. So good on Perth. That's it this week for the NBL news. Game 2 will be Wednesday night. Game 3, I think, if needed, on Sunday. So tune into that, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll see you all next week.